Today I'd like to present to you my top 10 greatest Mercedes-Benz Showcars of the last 20 years. This is such a close finish because there have been so many fantastic concept cars in the recent years from Mercedes. So my number 5 might be your number 7 and my number 3 might be your number 1. And that's fine. All these Showcars are absolutely stunning masterpieces of design and technology. So let's get right into it. Before we start, let's have a quick look at the different types of Showcars, and I'd like to sort them by two main dimensions. The first one is how close to production the car is, ranging from virtually production ready to complete fantasy. And the second dimension is the Showcar focus between technology and design. To give you a few examples, the concept GLB was presented only a few months before start of production of the GLB, and it is hardly distinguishable from the series production car. So in our grid, it would be right at the bottom and somewhere in the middle between tech and design. In this left corner, we have cars like the experimental safety vehicles ESF. Except for some minor design gimmicks, their main purpose is to showcase technological innovations and presenting the latest ideas of the R&D departments. Coming here towards the center, we have cars like the concept IAA, which are still years away from production readiness, but also not pure fantasy. They provide usually the best outlook of the upcoming generation Mercedes-Benz cars in around 5 to 10 years. And they represent also the most holistic idea of a future vehicle, integrating both technology and styling concepts for the future. And finally, in this upper right corner, we have the designer's playground, where we see very advanced visions that are usually far from serious production and much more focused on design ideas than on tech. The famous vision Gran Turismo or the Maybach 6 would find themselves up here. For my top 10 list, I will mainly focus on this upper right quadrant, because in my opinion, this is where the most exciting and fascinating Showcars are created. Alright, enough theory, let's get it started. Here's my number 10. And already I'm feeling bad because this Showcar deserves much better than number 10. This is definitely one of the most complex Showcars of that time. The F700 is part of a long line of research cars, all starting with a capital F. F for Forschung, which is German for research. And consequently, it is packed with stunning technology in almost every corner. The engine helps petrol to auto-ignite like diesel. Mercedes calls that Diesotto, and it results in better fuel efficiency and cleaner emissions. It's also mildly electrified with a 20 horsepower motor on its crankshaft, which was very green back in 2007. And there's more cool stuff on the chassis side. The pre-scan system scans the road surface in front of the car and adapts the active body control suspension at each wheel accordingly to almost completely eliminate all body movement. The cabin is extremely spacious and offers more comfort and luxury than an S-Class. The passenger seat can even be reversed with this clever mechanism. It remains a mystery though who approved this seat fabric. I think it would have been great in some Unimog for desert expeditions, but here it seems a bit out of place. Anyway, apart from that, the F700 is a brilliant concept car with true fireworks of great tech. That sounds all very good. So why only number 10? Well, I think there's a few issues on the exterior. If you want to be kind, you could call it quirky. But I would say that from almost every angle it's just not beautiful. Especially the side view suffers from proportions that are obviously hard to handle. The huge wheelbase with minimal overhangs, the short hood, the low belt line, the bulky shapes around the wheel arches. As an overall impression, it lacks balance and strength and solidity, and in the area of the A-pillar almost looks fragile. Mercedes called that style aquadynamic, and for a good reason we've never ever heard of it again, outside from your personal fitness schedule. It was one of the last projects of Peter Pfeiffer as chief designer at Mercedes, before he retired and handed over to the great Gordon Wagoner. My next Showcar is one of his babies, and the F700 was sent to the desert as a gift to UAE President Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan. What might actually explain this seat design? Well, here's my number 9. And this is the exact opposite of the F700. Design 100 points, tech, well, not so much honestly. This thing is an extreme, exaggerated, breathtaking vision of an electric race car from the future and a masterpiece of seamless design. And I think it's absolutely gorgeous. It was first presented at Pebble Beach during the Monterey Car Week in 2018 and created quite a buzz. You should watch this video of Supercar Blondie and Gordon Wagoner billing and cooing around the car. It's entertaining. But not yet, stay with me. Inspiration for that Showcar came from the glorious Mercedes-Benz Silver Arrows from the 1930s. Especially this car, the record-breaking single-seater W125 from 1937. It's the idea of an uncompromised race car with a radically pure shape, where everything just serves aerodynamic performance and speed. The W125 of course had a V12 and was the best sounding machine in history. The EQ Silver Arrow transforms this concept into the future with an electric powertrain and a digital interior. For me, the EQ Silver Arrow represents the Mercedes design philosophy of sensual purity at its best. This shape is so simple and clean and reduced, and yet so stunningly powerful and absolutely timeless. And why only number 9? Well, maybe because it has absolutely no relevance for road cars. But then again, especially that makes it a great show car. Just creating an iconic piece of art to celebrate design and cherish the brand heritage. I absolutely love it. Short side note, the W125 held the world record for the highest speed on public roads, set up on a German autobahn with 432.7 km per hour. This record was unbeaten for 80 years. Until November 2017, when Koenigsegg took an Agera RS and drove 10 kilometers faster. How unnecessary and disrespectful is that? Here's my number 8. This car was a gift from Mercedes to Mercedes for its 125th anniversary in 2011. It represents the vision of a sustainable luxury sedan for 2025 with a fuel cell powertrain, a spacious and organic interior, and revolutionary HMI concepts. The exterior features all kinds of classic and iconic elements of Mercedes-Benz design, reinterpreted in a futuristic way, like the front grille with a star on the hood and the famous gull-wing doors in the biggest version ever seen, actually replacing 4 standard doors. Some elements of the design found their way into production cars just shortly after, like that prominent dropping line on the side that was pretty much en vogue in the years to come and appeared on every new Mercedes, before they decided that no line at all was even better and took it off again. I think the F125 was a great example of how a big luxury car could be refreshingly different in proportionate design. And today we're actually not very far away from the target year 2025 anymore that Mercedes proclaimed back then. I would love to see cars in 4 years being that dramatic and emotional and innovative. It's probably a bit too radical for an S-Class, but some luxury sports sedan or a big coupe could seize ideas from that concept and take them to the streets. It was an exciting show car in 2011 and it would be a mind-blowing production car in 2025. Just do it, Mercedes. On to number 7. This car came to life in 2013 as a purely virtual show car, designed for Gran Turismo 6. It was Mercedes' answer to Sony calling upon all major OEMs to develop their visions of future race cars for the famous PlayStation 3 race simulation. This was the dream job for the Mercedes-Benz advanced design studios all over the world, and the final result was absolutely epic. It became massively popular, way beyond anybody's expectations. This Mercedes-Benz AMG Vision Gran Turismo, as it's properly called, they were still struggling a bit with their brands and sub-brands back then, is one of the most famous and loved show cars of the recent years, especially with younger car fans. And it shows that the classic recipe of sports car proportions with an extremely long hood and compact greenhouse never gets old. It just works. Like it worked 50 years earlier with the Ferrari 250 GTO, or 80 years earlier with the Bugatti 57 Atlantic. And Mercedes lifted that idea to the next level and created a thrilling Silver Arrow supercar with gull-wing doors that moneybags from all over the world wanted to buy immediately. In vain. At least Mercedes has built a hardware version of it that was presented on several occasions all over the world and also featured as the Batmobile for Bruce Wayne in Justice League 2017.
What are your superpowers again?
I'm rich.
To all the other rich guys, sorry. Back to your PlayStations. And from the ultimate self-driving machine to the car that drives you. The F015 obviously doesn't comply with the conventional idea of a car anymore. It's not even presented at a car show, but at the 2015 CES in Las Vegas. Its full name is Mercedes-Benz Vision F015 Luxury in Motion. That's catchy. And it's Mercedes' radical concept for the mobility of the future, autonomous and driverless. The F015 was the undisputed highlight of the CES and the blueprint for the self-driving luxury sedan. Still today, if you see an article about autonomous cars, you will most probably see pictures of this car to illustrate the story, or this wonderful picture from the 1950s to promote America's electric light and power companies. That's what I call visionary. Absolutely love it. The exterior of the F015 is absolutely iconic and completely different from any other car you've seen before. It's a radical monolithic one-box shape that is almost completely seamless. Even the window surfaces are hidden in body color. For me, it's absolutely stunning, and it's amazing how a shape of that simplicity can be so exciting. The interior behind these barn doors is the perfect luxury lounge with 4 seats in a vis-a-vis arrangement and fancy screens all over the place for the business people of the future to play with. This car was a big milestone for Mercedes and had a massive impact. The next one is a proper car again. The all-electric Maybach 6 was presented twice at the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. First in 2016 as a 2+2 coupe in dark red, and then 1 year later as a stunning convertible in dark blue. And even more than the Vision Gran Turismo, this is an unmistakable celebration of the glory and elegance from the past century. The name 6 stands for the car's length. The sheer size of 6 meters is already impressive, but the extreme proportions make this Maybach absolutely sensational. The front hood has the length of a smartphone too. The greenhouse is positioned extremely far rearwards. The rear end is extended like a boat tail and reminds you of the great aero coupes from the 1920s and 30s, like the famous Mercedes 540K Autobahn Courier, or the beautiful Talbot Lago Teardrop Coupe designed by Giuseppe Figioni, or this Rolls-Royce Jonquière Coupe, which is absolutely absurd for 1934, where the average traffic looked like this, and it was the only car in the world with round side doors. What a great era for designers and artists, where there were literally no limits and everything was allowed. It was actually just like building show cars, but in the end they all received license plates. Back to the Maybach. The coupe has giant 24-inch wheels, gull-wing doors and 2 gangster-style rear windows. 1 year later came the convertible version, and this was the ultimate haute couture of automobiles, bursting with extravagance and glamour and, honestly, decadence. For me, this is even more jaw-dropping than the coupe. Mercedes always receives plenty of offers and blank checks from all over the world for its show cars. But with the Maybach 6, people went completely crazy and were begging Mercedes to sell the Vision or build a production version of it. So far, it hasn't happened, and Mercedes keeps us all dreaming. Except for Drake, who got the keys for one day to shoot this video. Lucky boy.
Baby.
A few years back to another era. This is 2001, and Mercedes presents a radical, compact and sharp speedster with exciting chassis technology. The F400 Carving first saw the light of day at the Tokyo Motor Show, and as a highlight features an active tire tilt control system. It allows the wheels to lean into corners similar to a motorbike, and thus bring driving dynamics and safety to a completely new level. The exterior design is still exciting to look at, although it clearly came from a different era, where designers couldn't get enough of lines and creases. From today's perspective, there's certainly a bit too much going on within the short wheelbase, but generally, the radical package and the sharp shapes are still very appealing. You see quite a lot of motorbike design language here and there, with a lot of visible tech, a partially open body shell and exposed wheels. As a package, it might also remind you of the Vision SLA from the previous year. And these concepts might have led to a compact roadster underneath the SLK/SLC to fill the gap of affordable and dynamic sports cars within the Mercedes range. Of course, that never happened. And in 2020, even the production of the SLC would come to an end. So, if you want to buy a roadster from Mercedes today, you have to pay the money for an SL or AMG GT. Rest in peace, F400. The next car has much better chances to become reality one day. Here's my number 3. For me, this is one of the most beautiful and elegant sedans I've ever seen. And this is all the more remarkable since it doesn't use the proven recipe of dynamic sedan proportions, with a long hood and setback greenhouse. This is a completely different sedan silhouette. With this new design, Mercedes wants to demonstrate that luxury sedans can still be emotional and adorable in times where they don't need a long front hood for a big engine anymore. And it works brilliantly. We can only hope that as much as possible of that shape finds its way into the production EQS. The stunning silhouette is halfway between a conventional sedan and the F015 that we've just seen before. It's almost a one-box design. The upper part above the beltline is kept in black, in a sharp contrast to the silver body. This reduces the visual height of the sidewall and makes the EQS look sleek and elegant. Although there's a battery hidden in the floor, good for up to 700 kilometers. I think you cannot overestimate the importance of that car and the significance of that design step. In 135 years, there hasn't been a single good-looking sedan that doesn't have more or less this shape. A long hood, a greenhouse positioned behind the center of the car, a short front overhang, and a long distance between front wheel and windscreen. That's it. It applies to an E34 5 Series, to a 1971 Citroën DS, to a Porsche Panamera, to a Mercedes 220 from the 60s, to an Alfa Giulia, to a Bentley Flying Spur, to make it short, to anything that wants to look good. And here comes the EQS, breaks all the rules and is one of the most elegant, dynamic and balanced sedans ever made. Chapeau. And now, number 2. Another concept from the CES in Las Vegas. This is the very latest one, presented in January 2020. The Vision AVTR is a very complex and certainly one of the most expensive show cars Mercedes has ever built. And it's also the one which gives us the most advanced outlook into the future. The AVTR was an extremely ambitious project, inspired by the movie Avatar and realized in collaboration with James Cameron and the Avatar teams. And for me, the result is absolutely epic and unlike anything you've seen before. When I saw this car for the first time, one thing that struck me immediately, and this might sound a bit trivial, it's still a car. Although it's extremely advanced and futuristic, this AVTR is at first glance a car, and a car that appeals to people who love cars. And that sounds obvious, but shouldn't be taken for granted. We've seen tons of show cars every year, and usually, the more supposedly advanced they are, the less they appeal to car guys. Just a few examples. Look at the Rolls-Royce Vision Next 100. I mean, should I really want to drive this? It reminds me of a bed that some nerd has built from parts of his old car. I hope that you don't know any of these guys, but they exist. It's creepy and doesn't make any sense. That's how the Rolls-Royce looks. Another example is the F400 that we've just seen. I think it's a highly attractive shape, but it doesn't make you want to drive it. It's nothing that talks to your petrol head or the Toyota LQ. It has the aesthetics and the emotional appeal of some medical equipment, and it creates absolutely no connection to your limbic system at all. And then it's so redeeming when you look at the AVTR. This speaks to you, this appeals to you, and you just can't wait for 2050 or whenever this thing is here to get into it and drive it. I absolutely love it. I love the futuristic shape where you can't really tell where the exterior ends and the interior begins. It's all connected and fluent and organic and bionic. I love the wheels and these little flaps on the rear that seem to communicate with you. I think it's just an extraordinarily brilliant job by Mercedes, how they've taken inspiration from Avatar to design this living creature of a car. Thank you very much. And finally, here's my number 1 show car of the last 20 years. And I could imagine that many of you are a bit surprised, especially after seeing this mind-blowing AVTR, to see this much more down-to-earth concept finished first. But I've loved the concept IAA since it was presented in Frankfurt in 2015, and I still love it today. Of course, the AVTR is much more sensational and jaw-dropping, but it would be unthinkable to bring it to the streets now. What I love about the IAA is that as stunning and radical it is, it's actually not far from being production ready. You could imagine having this with minor adaptations on the road today, maybe as a big sporty 4-door coupe above the CLS, and it would be an absolutely stunning eye-catcher. The shape is beautifully elegant and pure and sleek. It's completely clear, no playing around with unnecessary ornamentation, and that gives it an absolutely timeless beauty. And at the same time, it looks very intelligent and sophisticated. You get the sense that this shape is like it is for physical reasons, to improve aerodynamics and efficiency. The transformation into its aero mode is a sensation on its own and turns it into the world champion of aerodynamics. Outstanding beauty and technical intelligence combined. This car represents the emotional core of Mercedes-Benz values in a perfect way. This is what the best or nothing stands for. And this is why it's my number 1. If I could pick 3 show cars to be brought to production, it would be this IAA for 2020, the EQS in 5 years, and the AVTR in 15 years. Happy future! Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.